All right.
Wait. Good deal. So let's see. Steve Keat, Dr. Tim Lola. Hey, Tim Lola. Matt Stats, Hilario, Jeff, Betsy, Blaine Hansen, Andrew Hansen. Good deal. So it's a good crew here. We're gonna get rolling. So, guys, there's no agenda, no script. We're just gonna have a conversation, like if you're sitting on a table there in Park Expo or whatever, having lunch. So, what's new there, Phil?
Interesting times, right? Yeah, weird times. I feel like a lot of the conversations I've been having are just so much different than what we're ever used to, right? But it's I guess pigs are still being born, and we're still fortunately able to get pigs sold, and life moves on, right?
Yes.
So it's kind of the name of the game right now.
Yes. So let me ask you, Phil, there, from everything that's happening right now, what would be one thing that you were surprisingly, positively surprised about, and one thing that you were just surprised about that you're definitely not expecting?
Yeah, so obviously from a team member standpoint, that was something that we were mostly concerned about from a sow farm standpoint. The structure of our business is we don't manage many of our finishing spaces, so the majority of our team is on the sow farm side. And yeah, when this all started happening, we started meeting early March, started actually discussing it kind of late February, and then started meeting regularly early March. And kind of our first concern was, what happens if we don't have people to staff the farms? How are we gonna be able to continue moving on? And at that point, obviously we didn't know the extent of the symptoms and how long people would be out. And so I guess sitting here today, I'm surprised that, or I'm thankful that the team has continued to stay around. And obviously, for those that the virus has affected, it's been very devastating and not good. Fortunately, we've not had any confirmed positives at our farm yet. We've had several individuals that obviously came down with a fever and decided that that they weren't feeling good, right? But several of them have been able to get tested, and some of them, their primary care doctor just said, "Hey, wait and see how long the fever lasts." And
Right.
we've been able to take some steps to segregate teams some too, so that's been really, I think, helpful in the event that we do have someone that tests positive. We've been able to on our sow farm specifically, we split each farm into 2 different groups, and they're working different hours. Right now we're doing 4 days on, 4 days off, 12-hour shifts.
Wow.
At the beginning, I think everyone was like, okay, how's this going to go? And of course, there's been a little bit of challenge with that. But honestly, by and large, we've been really surprised with the attendance record that we've had. We've had very few people calling out, and I think most people are committed to doing their work that they would normally do every day, which is a great surprise, and honestly a huge advantage and huge blessing for us that we're able to continue things relatively as normal.
Good deal. No, that's great. It's great to hear. Let me see. We have about 60 folks here on the call, everyone. So just drop your questions as well here for a few. We're going to get to them a little later here. And in the meantime, Phil, another question I have for you is, you guys have been farming for 5 generations. Is that right?
Yeah, if you ask my grandpa, he would probably say it would be more than that. But
okay.
We've been saying 5 generations. I'm 5 generations. My daughter would be 6 generations. So
that's good. That's good. As long as you
Yeah,
bought a plastic tractor for her, we're good.
yeah, my wife recently bought her a little shirt and it said "Future Farmer" on it, or "Daddy's Little Farmer." So
Cool.
um, I'm I'm just itching to get her into the barn, and she loves. We have two dogs, so she's been loving on those, and I can't. I'm sure she's going to love pigs, but
That'd be awesome.
yeah,
That'd be awesome.
absolutely.
So on that question, 5 generations, you guys have been through several cycles from the last century in pig production. What would be some cornerstone business pillars that you guys talk about, over how to handle? Is that having a lot of cash on hand to survive? So what would be the top 2 or 3 things that other producers should keep in mind? Because as we know, a lot of people go bankrupt. So what are those key things there, Phil?
Yeah. So my grandparents and my parents are the ones that are currently, running the business. I think one thing that's always kind of ran strong with them has been a certain level of conservatism in regards to not overcapitalizing themselves and um, making strong business decisions. Um, you know, I I can't say that there hasn't been times where that's been, never been an issue, right? We still worry about what that looks like long term, but I think what what has been able to be, so like if we go back, several generations ago, the way that this farm really got started was that my great great grandpa and my great grandpa really during uh, World War II, basically there was a ceiling on hog prices, and he was able to. He thought he was going to sell those pigs at a loss, or at nothing, and was able to actually sell them double than what he was thinking he was going to sell them at, and that was actually the down payment for our first farm. And so, I sit here today and I'm like, wow, like what happens? What would have happened if that never would have happened?
Yeah.
We wouldn't be where we are today. But I think that the long term has been, kind of fast forwarding to today, a lot of it has been just calculated decisions, and a lot of our growth has been organic. We've not been in a situation where we've been acquiring any large number of animals. Today, I think that our business could look much larger, but I don't think that was never the goal. And so I think for those that are just like, oh, I need to have another 500 sows, another 2,000 sows, another 10,000 sows, it was never about a number, and more about how do we effectively manage what we have today and do that well. And then when there's an opportunity that comes to us, either to expand our own herd, um, we do that. But obviously we're in different times today, and it'll be interesting to see what happens over the next 6, 12, 18 months, right, in this industry.
Very good. I did hear some estimates, and you never know. No one knows what's going to happen, but I did hear some estimates that for the next 6 to 12 months, we're probably going to stay at about 80% capacity overall for packing plants, which it's kind of surprising for me. I wouldn't be expecting that, but it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I think there's, in my opinion, there's a few different things that we've been hearing or that others have shared with us. And a lot of those come down to that we have some older facilities that were already running way over capacity, that what the usefulness of the equipment was, or what the capabilities were. We have other strategic decisions of maybe not having as much supply, focusing more on quality or relationships with the customer, their individual customer. I guess in general, we would obviously like to see that number be higher, or think that that number would be higher. And quite honestly, maybe it will be higher than that. But, I think that we have a lot of aging facilities, so doesn't come as a huge surprise, but maybe it's a bad time to be thinking about running the plants at lower capacity, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So, yeah.
That makes sense. I'm looking here, guys. This is a quiet group here. We had a call a few weeks ago, and there was 22 questions. So you guys better get your questions going here. No questions yet. So, Phil, in the meantime, if we forget COVID-19 for a minute, which I think everyone is past.
Yeah.
Let's do on that one. Overall, just production. Like, what would be, before everything happened, what's the latest and greatest from a overall production standpoint that you are seeing there?
Yeah. So one thing that we were really working on coming out of the fall and into this winter, but before the virus really started, was focusing on farrowing rate in sow farms. One thing that we maybe used to do a little bit better job at that we weren't doing today was focusing on, like, for a 2500, we want 115 sows to farrow every week.
Mm-hmm.
And so we actually had some really great success with that. We had farms get behind that. That's a really simple concept. It's like, okay, it takes a little bit to plan for, right? We have 4 months to work on that, but there's ways of whether that be pulling animals out of pen gestation earlier so they don't lose a litter, whether that be focusing on animal condition more, whether that be focusing on even just the breeding process more. But we were having really good success with that, and still are today. We're sitting at some of our best farrowing rates that we've been at in a while. Maybe it's not the best time for that, but it's one goal that we had. We're obviously still battling the sow mortality issue. That's still something that is big, and one that our system is more than half pen gestation now. So we're well on our way to being fully penned and for sow gestation. And I think we're just learning. We're continuing to learn what best housing scenario might continue. I think there's a correlation there in terms of farrowing rate and being able to keep sows bred in a scenario where in pen gestation, and that's something we've got to keep learning, got to keep working on. On the nursery finishing side, it's just continuing to, maybe our mortality ticked up a little bit more than what it had been in the past. It wouldn't have been unheard of for us to be sitting at 1% nursery mortality. Maybe that creeped up 0.5% or so over the last few years. Some of that may be due to lower wean age and maybe some other relatively minor health issues. So we've just been continuing to work on that. And, we've got some cool trial work going, some nursery and finishing studies going to continue working on the nutrition front. I guess for those that don't know me, I guess that's one of the areas that I help manage for the business, and is a really exciting area to be a part of. Marcio, this, but when I first came back to our business, almost 5 years ago now, we were kind of looking for something. I came back in the business, I worked in different areas, but long term I was like, okay, how do I add value to what we already have? And that's where I ended up finding a lot of value and feeling like I was able to contribute, was helping improve the area of nutrition. And then over time, those areas of nutrition and production management kind of continue to coincide together. And it's been a fun area to be involved with. But
very good. That makes total sense. So we have 5 questions now. Great, guys. Great job. So Dr. Annie Lerner, how are you, Annie? Phil, such rare times, But what do you think but do you think it's irresponsible as pork producers to run tight supply and relying so heavily on the packers? It's getting hot here, guys.
Um, I think the producer, I guess if we're getting real, it's getting hot. I think that if we as producers sit back and we really are honest, I think we kind of created some of this mess, right? We came out of PED time. Some people made a lot of money. There was a lot of growth.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's unfair to say that the producer didn't have a lot to do with this in terms of massive growth. The other thing to think about also is the improvement in production. We've had a really great improvement in production over the last several years.
Right.
And as an industry, maybe I can't say that we've had such significant production improvements in our own business, but I guess as an industry as a whole, if we think about that, that's continually improving as we learn more about disease and we mitigate disease and we have treatment for disease. So I think it's a multifaceted issue, if you ask me. But I guess I don't know if I would go to say that it's irresponsible, but I think it's definitely it's understandable that we would be in this place based off of where we've been heading for the last handful of years.
Makes sense. Yeah, it's pretty tight supply chain, right?
Yeah.
Nat Stats. Hey, Nat. He's asking, hey, Phil, you're very involved with the research initiatives within the company. What are some of the things that you are working on, and how has this shift your focus? What should we be looking at during these times or on the back end of this?
Sure. There's been some great research that's came out regarding how to slow pigs down. There's been research there, but we've seen some additional suggestions on how to slow pigs down if we need to do that based off of not being able to get them sold. I can't say that we've done a lot of new or interesting things there. We are testing something in the nursery right now where we're titrating different lysine levels all the way down to with soybean meal. So we're actually going down to a 0% soybean meal diet in it started week 3 in the nursery, and we're carrying that out to week 6. Should be pretty interesting. We've got some, we've never done that before, obviously, and that's a different time. Most people aren't thinking about that in terms of that stage of pig, but we're thinking that same concept may be able to carry through into the early grower phase and may be able to help us with some learnings for maybe some finishing pigs.
Interesting.
So yeah, that's something that we're working on. I guess in general in nursery, we've just been working on cutting cost. Obviously that's everyone's goal. Well, I shouldn't say that's everyone's goal. That was our goal. Because with, fortunately we have higher health. We don't, we're triple negative. We're not dealing with a lot of routine disease where we are here in Ohio, fortunately, knock on wood. But, so a lot of what we've been working on in nursery is figuring out ways to produce a healthy pig, but just at a little bit lower cost. We've recently had some success with the second phase diet. So for us, we start with a small pelleted feed. We don't pellet our feeds through nursery or finishing generally, but we start with a starter pellet. And then we've been working on a second phase diet actually where we used to use, or, we're currently still investigating this. So we currently use a base mix of some whey permeate and fish meal, alternative proteins to help that animal start growing. And we've been investigating replacing that with synthetic amino acids and just completely getting rid of the alternative proteins, just basically going to a corn soy diet.
Wow.
And that we've had some really good success with that. And I'm excited to say we just turned 10,000 sow flow onto that program. So
Oh.
we've got a few research studies under our belt there. We'll keep learning, but
Mm-hmm.
I think the modern pig is, my training is in finance. So I should put the preface there. I've been learning about nutrition. I've been learning about health, and I'm still learning every day.
That's great.
But my collegiate education is in finance. But a lot of what we've been doing is kind of pushing the limits based off of what we knew was originally possible. Some of that comes from ignorance, I would say, maybe
Mm-hmm.
not knowing all of the literature or a lot of the standards that we would normally use. But I've got a great team and some great mentors that are helping us out with that, and it's been exciting.
Very, very interesting. We have a few more here. Phil, it's Franklin Kings. It is early days in the COVID-19, but have you thought about any change you might do in the future because of the past 8 weeks? One example, the work schedule or any other thing that you guys are already, hey, we're going to do this. A comment from a technology side, I heard a few companies from the IT side going home office, and so there's been a few already step changes in humanity, if you will. Anything
Yeah.
for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, I think long term we would like to get back to having a normal staffing schedule. I think it's been really interesting to see how well that we've been able to adapt to what we're doing today. Um, our business, we focus a lot on people, and I think a lot of the things that we're concerned about long term is that team isn't able to be a true team, right? They can be two cohesive and separate teams, but for each farm, think there's I think a lot of people can identify with that. Those sow farm teams become like a little family. And so what you've been doing is separating certain people out, and yeah, they're making their own little families into two different groups. But my goal long term and our goal long term is to get them back together. And I think we'll see that relatively soon. We've been talking about that. When's the best time? What are ways that we can still implement some protective measures to ensure that our team can be healthy, but still be able to work together. One thing we are working on is, unfortunately, some of our sow farms don't have great internet connections, so to do video calling is somewhat of a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
But that is something that we're investigating. We're working on installing some TVs with cameras so that we can do more remote meetings. So in this scenario, we've been having to do remote meetings out of necessity, but I think in the future it makes a lot of sense that maybe we can have uh, more meetings, just in terms of not meeting just once a month, but meeting
Yeah,
every
yeah,
week or every 2 weeks by using technology that way. So
super
that
cool.
might be something that we would be looking at in the future.
Yes, I love it. Super cool. We're getting lots more questions here, Phil. Let's get it.
Okay.
Let's get it done. Marine, she's asking your three biggest health challenges, and a different question she had as well as your top three things that cost you the most or keep you up at night.
Okay. Um, yeah. So, you know, sorry, can you read that one, the first one more time?
First one, three biggest health
Health
challenges.
issues. Yeah. So like I said earlier, fortunately, we're not dealing with a lot of PRRS or PED in our area. I would say, honestly, the biggest challenges that we're dealing with are strep bacteria, and we're also dealing with some E. coli in the nursery. And finishing a lot, we would be dealing with HBS, some uh, ileitis.
Mm-hmm.
We've been playing around with some vaccines there and have some success there with ileitis. Those would be some of our main challenges when it comes to performance of animals and maintaining health. Um, top three things that keep me up at night. you
It's
know.
a teaser for your talk at the Swine Talks conference.
Yes,
Just
yeah,
saying.
that's right. That's right. You know, I think we're gonna have to figure out what this commodity market looks like long term. I think we're gonna have to figure out how to sell our story,
Hmm.
and it's not just selling our story; it's making true believers of the story and helping them understand, uh, the farm. More people are removed from the farm than ever before. We have uh, more people in the world that have never seen a pig, that have never seen a cow, that have never seen a chicken,
Hmm.
and we're fighting against um, media in a connected society that can spew lies or false information very fast. And that's one thing that concerns me for the long term.
Okay.
Uh, I definitely, I guess more short term, it would be just, when do we return to normal?
Hmm.
I think that's on everyone's mind, but it's definitely on my mind. Is when do we return to normal? What does normal look like? How maybe this will shape our business into looking like something else. Because of how we're able to, or we have to go to move forward. I think that any business owner is wondering, what does the next 6 months look like, let alone the next 6 years. Fortunately, us in agriculture, we're relatively, obviously we're going through major challenges, major issues, but our businesses are still operating. For some of us, that's scary. There's times where we're not sure that we will be able to continue, but I think in general we still have animals to feed, and animals are still being born, and you
Hmm.
know there's still action. And so I think, to like the restaurant industry, there's some restaurants that have chosen to be able to do carry out, but some restaurants, I mean, locally we've had several that have just shut down. They've done nothing. So I know that's very common across different locations, but um, I guess it's just, what does the next 6 months look like? Let's focus on this. The last 8 weeks feels like an eternity.
It does.
So maybe, what does the next 8 weeks look like?
Yeah, especially the 1 year old at home.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
She
good.
is. She's crazy. She is so fun. I got home today and she runs over, and she started to say my name. So
Oh, that's good.
Dad is home. So yeah, it was fun.
Oh, that's so cool. I was gonna say, so my son is 1 month old. So if anyone know how to stop a baby crying or colic and all those things, drop the comment here that we're gonna use it tonight. So Phil, another question. Let's see here. Another question from Annie. Um, Me again. She said, how is corn quality out there? Any mycotoxins that you're concerned about right now as we use up last year's corn crop? Any thoughts on binders? Chad Polk is following up on that same question. He was asking, hey Chad, are you doing anything during the corn drying process to limit these concerns?
Um, Yeah, so fortunately, we're not dealing with a lot of mycotoxins from 2019 corn. We saw quite a bit of toxin in 2019 wheat in our area. So that limited some of the, like, wheat mids would be a byproduct that we can sometimes feed. And then the levels were low enough, and we were using a lower inclusion before COVID kind of changed all this. But before, we were able to feed that based off of pricing and whatnot, but we were feeding at a lower inclusion level and finishing. Sometimes we throw mids and sow gestation diets, but we were looking at 4 to 5 ppm dawn, which for us, at the level that we wanted to feed the mids, we weren't comfortable with that. So our complete feed is testing well below 1. Our corn is testing in that 0.75 area. Um, I would say the average is maybe slightly less than that sometimes, but I would say in general, the corn is fine. We were dealing with some test weight issues, so maybe some quality from that front.
Okay.
Just maybe not having the best corn available to us that we had purchased, but so maybe a little bit more powdering and things that we weren't used to from years prior was happening. We are using binders in sows and in nursery pigs. For us, like I said, Dawn is the biggest concern. So especially in nursery, we are feeding. For those that know, like diffusion would be a similar product to kind of like what we're attacking it with. And in sows, we're using a broad spectrum mycotoxin binder, mainly focused on aflatoxins or alano, and we have minor traces of both of those, as well as we have something in there for Dawn as well. Even though we have low levels, I feel like it's worth it from an insurance standpoint for us, and it doesn't make me worry about that as much as maybe if we didn't have anything in there.
Very good, Phil. Thank you. Let's see here. Steve Kidd. Hey, Steve. Hi, Phil. You mentioned the last 8 weeks feel like an eternity. So true. How have you felt like you and others in the leadership team have coached your teammates through it? Any great examples of people helping people, teammates in business or otherwise from what you've seen?
Yeah, I owe you an email back, Steve. So, no, we've had an amazing time with our team. I think we've had, like I said earlier, kind of in the first part of the call, it was amazing to us the level of commitment to their job, to their caring of animals. It wasn't just a job. I think if it was, we saw too many people, and we've been made aware of many stories where people just stopped going to work, or they were scared of the virus. And I don't think it was anything we did super special. I think it was more like, let's make them as comfortable as they can so that they can accomplish the work that needs to be done. And early on, like I said, we were early on in this schedule thing. We implemented this separate scheduling and shared surface cleaning, so disinfection multiple times a day. The masks were made available. We were just talking today on a South production management call that maybe we should start looking at the face shields. People are starting to hear of the face shields, the clear plexiglass shields. Mm-hmm. Maybe that would be an intermediary step to being able to potentially bring people back together. We try to spread out the break room, people not sitting right next to each other. We just did things that we tried to do to try to help make it a great environment for people to still feel comfortable coming to work. And I guess the other thing that I have glossed over as I've been talking about this, but was really essential, was temperature taking. So we implemented the whole temperature thing really early on. And I guess Ohio, like the Ohio Governor DeWine, was one of the first ones to like shut things down and be like on front lines, which I don't know, everyone has different perspectives of this. And, mm-hmm. I guess initially it kind of made us naturally part of the first group that did the temperature taking and did the shared surface cleaning and things. But I'm wondering if some of those things helped people feel more comfortable that, okay, if I don't have a fever, then I'm okay coming to work. Mm-hmm. But we've been doing different little like weekly or bi-weekly gifts to the team, like some things as simple as a pack of M&Ms. Early on, we did toilet paper. That was kind of fun. Everyone got a roll of toilet paper. We've recently done some meat. I know we're getting ready to do some t-shirts that have like essential on them. So, just kind of doing like little fun things and That's things cool. To keep people encouraged and feel like they're part of a team. And, I feel like we're just trying to do everything we can there.
Very good. Awesome. So we're getting close to the end here, guys. I have one quick question from Chad Polk here, Phil, and then I have a few other random questions that I want to ask you here they go beyond pig production. So Chad was asking, you talked about crystalline amino acids in the nursery diets. Are you adding those amino acids individually, or so that in the microingredient system, or you have an amino acid premix?
Yeah, they're added individually. Yep, we're doing them at separate rates, and it's
Okay.
not a they're added individually, formulated to spec for us.
Okay.
Yep.
And they go up to valine, or you said you go beyond valine. Do you use isoleucine, for example, or not?
No.
Okay. Cool. So here are the random questions, guys. Phil, so if you could have a gigantic billboard anywhere with anything on it, metaphorically speaking, what would it say and why?
I feel like I'm obligated to say, like, farmers aren't trying to kill you. I feel like in today's world, it's like everyone, not everything is a conspiracy. Don't believe everything you read in the newspaper or on Facebook. Maybe a faith-based message, I don't know. It's I can't help but thinking, before this whole thing, it was all about the fake meat. Not that that's not a huge issue today. For those of you that follow the stock market, Beyond has been having a fairly good time Beyond Me has been having a fairly good time during this issue.
Mm.
So I don't know what that looks like, but from as far as the fake meat goes, but yeah, farmers aren't trying to kill you. Maybe I'll put that as my top one.
I love it. Next one is, what are bad recommendations you hear in pig production?
Oof. Yeah. I think a lot of times we try to undersell the value of a person, the people doing the job. There's been the last year or two, there's been this big push to focus on people, which is really great. Because I think a lot of times, if we look back, it was just train them how to do the job how you want them to do it, and you'll get results. And by all means, there's obviously standards and there's things that we need to teach. But I disagree with the fact that people don't need to understand why they're doing something. I think that means that makes people be able to go the extra mile. That means that they know why they're doing a certain process or procedure. So just telling someone to do something, I don't want that. I like being able to tell them the reason why they're doing it. And if it takes some people, that will come naturally. They're like, okay, I get it. Some people, that's accomplished over months, several months. So I think that's one thing that kind of rubs me the wrong way is like, we can just fill farms with people that are robots. And if we look back, I don't think that our history of our business, our industry would be in our business would be where it is today if we just had robots. I'm all about AI. I'm all about technology, but I think there's still a lot of caring that is involved. So yeah.
Yes, that makes total sense. Okay, very good. Two more questions, folks, and we're done for the evening. Phil, one is, in the last few years, what new belief, behavior, or habit that most improved your life?
Yeah, I think it's common for people in agriculture to just work themselves to death. And if you're not working, that you're not doing everything you can. So I've actually noticed my dad has started to like come along with this. Like, he used to be that way. He would readily admit that. And there is no question that hard work pays off, but I think investing in things that and time, investing time in family and things that you enjoy is not a bad thing, and in fact, it recharges you to be able to do what you need to do better. So I've just been learning that. I haven't mastered that.
Mm-hmm.
I try to shut my laptop after dinner. In the past maybe I would have been doing emails or doing whatever, but I've tried to shut that off and you know or do whatever. So hard work is awesome, but there's a time and a place, and being able to know when to shut things off. It's hard to say in this industry, or like right now in these times. I feel like that's almost kind of a selfish thing to say, because there's so much awful things that are going on, but
Yeah.
That's essential for us to be able to provide our best. My mom took time for yourself to be able. That's one thing I've been learning that I feel like I've really been trying to change.
Very cool. Yeah, I appreciate that. That's super cool. Last question, Phil, is so when you feel, it's cutting off a little bit. When you feel overwhelmed or unfocused or have lost your focus temporarily, what do you do?
If I'm at the office, I usually get up and go grab some coffee. If I guess in general, I think there's times over the last, several years that I've been kind of like, I'm feeling meh about things. My wife and I like to travel, so even if it's just a day trip, that can be really refreshing, really, change your perspective. I think in general, just changing your place, if you go out and do something, go somewhere that you've not been, or even sometimes that can be going to a barn that you haven't been to in a while, going to visit a team that you don't have routine contact with. That can be really refreshing. For times where it's like I am in a huge rut and I don't know what I like anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where to go. I feel like I always come back from longer trips refreshed so doing some traveling. That's what I like to do.
I love it. This is awesome, Phil. I appreciate your time. Thanks, everyone. Thanks so much, Phil, and thanks everyone for being here tonight. We have another one Thursday with Dr. Chad Hasted from New Fashion. Everyone is invited, and have a good night there, Phil. And thanks, Matt. Where's Matt? Ruda. He sent some baby colic tips here on the private. So.
All right. Take care. See you guys.
Thanks, guys. Good night.